Good morning, church. I'm Jen, your communications and events pastor. It's great that I get to join in with Pastors Ryan and Janice as we've been able to dive into scripture with you over the past couple weeks while Pastor Corky has been on sabbatical. I'm grateful that he's entrusted me with this in his absence, and I know we look forward to welcoming him back into the office tomorrow morning. So in Titus chapter 1, we heard Paul give his signature greeting and introduction before giving Titus instructions as to his tasks within the church. Now we find ourselves in chapter 2, where we're going to listen to Paul's guidance as to what the new kind of household looks like. And a new kind of household is necessary, as we've already heard from Paul of the wickedness that has overcome the Cretan people. He's giving Titus the full truth about these people. There is no sugarcoating. And now in chapter 2, Paul is telling Titus it's his job to redirect them and to teach them. So let's read our passage for today. Let's pick it up in chapter 2, verse 1. You, however, must teach what is appropriate to sound doctrine. Teach the older men to be temperate, worthy of respect, self-controlled, and sound in faith, in love, and in endurance. Likewise, teach the older women to be reverent in the way they live, not to be slanderers or addicted to much wine, but to teach what is good. In fewer words, I think Paul's message to the older men and women is simply to lead by example. The older men and women are the patriarchs and matriarchs of the households. They set the tone. And if they don't have it together, then how is anyone else supposed to have it together? The older men and women were supposed to be the wise ones, the ones the younger generation can call upon for guidance. If the examples for the younger generation include older men that are prone to outbursts, that are harsh, and that are unreliable, and then older women that disregard the way that they live, defame others, and are gluttons, there's only one of two outcomes that could occur. Either the younger generation mimics what they see as though it's the norm, or they recognize the shortcomings of the older generation and actively seek the opposite. They break the generational curse. And if we're honest, we probably know more individuals that have succumbed to the generational curses of today than those that have actually broken it. And that's because it is much harder to break it than it is to just simply succumb to it. Paul is trying to catch this on the front side, to have Titus whip those old people into shape so that the younger generation is set up for success in life. Paul knows it's much harder to break the generational curses, and he's looking to Titus to put the kibosh on it now. Now, I'd like to consider myself part of the younger generation, so if it's brought a chuckle to you this morning, me speaking to you about Paul's advice for senior living, you are not alone. I too chuckled in preparing for this week's Take 5. However, me being a part of the younger generation, I'm fully aware there is a generation coming up behind me that views me as the older generation. This puts senior living into perspective. Most of us are the older generation. There is a generation growing up now that looks to my generation for guidance, and my generation is looking up to the generation before me for guidance, and so on. We all have a role to play in regards to setting the tone for the younger generation. And we must lead by example. It's a gift that we get to give to the younger generation, a good example of Christian living, so that they don't have to break a generational curse. They see the goodness of God being lived out in each of us, and it becomes second nature to the younger generation. The younger generation is trained, if you will, for good Christian living. And when life gets hard or the struggle becomes real,
it will be natural for them to lean into their training. I come from a family full of law enforcement and military that collectively have close to 100 years of training. Our law enforcement and military go through extensive training. And the reason for this extensive training is so that the instinct, when all crazy breaks loose, is to act in accordance to their training. Because in certain moments, there is no time to think about what to do. They have to rely on their instincts and to do what comes naturally in the moment. Their training, it has saved their lives. And the training we give to the younger generation could just save their lives as well. So church, this week, let's focus on being a good example. Let's train the younger generation by setting the example and save lives by pointing them to Jesus. Have a great week, church.